Well, hi, folks. Let's see here. There we are. I think we're working and I think we're live. All right, folks. I'm Dr. Greg Sanchez. I'm the owner of Homestead Senior Care here in Pasadena and in Monrovia. I want to thank you all for joining us. As you can tell, I'm state of the art here. Facebook Live is probably about as state of the art as I'm going to get. But here we have behind me, as a adjunct college professor, I've got my whiteboard here ready to go. But we also have some information that's going to be right there in front of you. So feel free to go ahead and write it down at any time. We have here, if you are a resident of the County of Los Angeles, you can right now, if you're 65 years or older, or a healthcare worker with direct care to patients, or in a caregiving perspective like at Homestead, if you're working as a caregiver, you can go ahead and set up a vaccine appointment now. The vaccine appointment website is for LA County is publichealth.lacounty.gov/ACD/N Corona 2019/vaccine/HCWS IGN up /. That will take you to the county website where you can go ahead and book a coronavirus appointment. I did go ahead and try to book an appointment for a 65-year-old today and was successful in accessing most of the sites that were actually already listed as unavailable. But keep trying, because as we get vaccine, we'll go ahead and they'll be able to have more appointments. Now, if you're a resident of the city of Pasadena, Pasadena Public Health also has an opportunity to request a vaccine. So Pasadena Public Health requires you to fill out a form based off of if you're over 65, or if you are a healthcare worker. They will go ahead and fill out the form online, and then they'll reach out to you. And they usually reach out within 24 to 48 hours, and they'll schedule an appointment for you. Okay, so I just wanted to keep that there for you guys, and it looks like we put it in the chat, so that way you also have it there to go ahead and book that appointment. Let's talk a little bit about, I'm just stalling at this point to make sure that we get a few more people to join in on the Facebook Live here. But a little bit about my background. So before I purchased our Homestead Senior Care franchise here in Pasadena and Monrovia, I was working in the pharmaceutical industry. I was at Gilead Sciences for 6 years, and then Allergan for another 6 years. Plus, some of the research that I was doing at USC for my graduate work was all pharmaceutical based. So I've got over almost 15 years of experience working in this field before transitioning to Homestead Senior Care. So, and worked on a lot of different projects that actually had me interfacing a lot with the regulatory bodies like the FDA. So what we're going to do today is talk a little bit from the pharmaceutical development side of the vaccine, so that way you have a little bit more understanding, because I've got about 25 questions that people have already submitted, and a lot of them have to do with, was the vaccine rushed through development or rushed through regulation? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So I think right now, let's go ahead and talk about this vaccine. So you've got 2 vaccines approved in the US right now. You've got the Pfizer-BioNTech and the Moderna vaccines. Both are what we call mRNA vaccines. Now, what is mRNA? That just means messenger RNA. It means a strand of genetic material that tells our cells to build that spiky protein. So if you've seen the picture of the coronavirus, you know that there's those little red spikes in there. What that messenger RNA does is tell our cells, make that protein. And because it's a foreign protein to our bodies, it immediately initiates an immunoresponse. And that immunoresponse then creates antibodies. And that's the whole way that these messenger RNA vaccines work. Now, the formulation of that vaccine is basically just that strand of messenger RNA. And then it is basically added into what we call a lipid nanoparticle. So fats. So it's in a little fat bubble, if you want to think about it like that. And the fat bubble consists of phosphocholine, cholesterol, polyethylene glycol. So those are the lipids. Now, of course, Pfizer and BioNTech and then Moderna are not going to tell you the exact composition, but they have to tell you what the lipids are. That's kind of the trade secret. So we know what's inside of it. And then there's what we call excipients. And the excipients are basically just the other parts of the formulation that help create what we call a biologically friendly solution that can be injected into the body. Things like sucrose or different types of salts. So that way you have a nice solution that is easily able to be diluted and then subsequently injected. So based off of one of the questions there, what's in the formulation? That's pretty much the basic formulation for both the BioNTech, Pfizer, and Moderna formulas. Now, what's so different about them? I mean, we hear about Pfizer, BioNTech, we hear about Moderna. What's the difference? Well, really, they function exactly the same. The formulations are slightly different, and there's a lot of questions that came up about, well, why does one have to be stored at minus 80 degrees and the other one can be stored like it's in my freezer at home? Well, for two reasons. One, it could be that the formulation, the actual composition of the lipids might break down in that Pfizer-BioNTech. If it's not stored at those really cold temperatures, or it's that they didn't have what we call stability data to go ahead and support how that material is being stored so that it maintains its efficacy. Again, those things are accounted for in the overall studies that were performed. And so I'm not too worried. So those are really the only differences about the Pfizer, BioNTech, and the Moderna vaccines. Now, if we think about, someone had asked the question about how old do you have to be to get vaccinated? Well, right now, the studies that were presented to the FDA in order to achieve the emergency use authorization from the FDA only included a population of individuals for the Pfizer-BioNTech from 16 years and up. The Moderna was 18 years and up. So right now, these two vaccines are not, do not have the regulatory approval to be given to children. Now, a lot of studies are still ongoing, and that's a good thing. Right now, those folks who were on the original clinical trial, they're still being evaluated. So just because we have an emergency use authorization in place doesn't mean that the study stopped. And there are multiple studies going on right now to see if both the Moderna and the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccines are going to be efficacious in children. So that's right now. If we think about an emergency use authorization, and we should probably talk a little bit about that, what does that mean? Does that mean that they didn't do anything, any studies or anything? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The same scientific rigor that one would expect for an actual approved vaccine or medication were still conducted. One of the questions asked, well, why were they rushed through? Well, they weren't rushed through. Let's talk a little bit about pharmaceutical development. So pharmaceutical development, we have a substance that is able to go ahead and positively impact a patient who might be having X, Y, or Z disease. We need to figure out how we get it into the body. And then once we figure that out, we need to do several different tests. So we need to create the analytical test methods. We need to do all these different things. And that's just before we even get into the phase 1 clinical trials, which phase 1 clinical trials are about safety. So if you can imagine, pharmaceutical companies, just before anything even goes into the human being, have spent millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, not just on, the development, but the preparation for phase 1 clinicals. So phase 1 clinical trials are all about safety and dosing and identifying what the optimal dose is. And those studies alone, just for that study, one phase 1 study could cost up to $50 million, okay? A phase 2 study, 50 to 100 million, and when we get, which is basically looking at efficacy, meaning how well does that drug product work, there's another 50 to 100 million dollars. And then when we get to the phase 3 clinical trial, phase 3 clinical trial also looks at safety and efficacy, but in a larger patient population. The majority of the studies that have been formed here are over 30,000 people, some of them even 70,000 people. So those studies, you want to take a wild guess how much those cost? Were about $500 million. So pharmaceutical companies have a huge pipeline of different products that they're all working to try to get approval for and then commercialize to go ahead and release to the population to support whatever ailment they're trying to treat. Now, as a business owner, they're going to go ahead and basically say, okay, you know what? Right now, I can't afford to pay for all these, for 10 products or 10 drug products to potentially go to a phase 3 clinical trial. I have to pick the one that has the best chance of actually being successful. So I've just explained a lot about the monetary background of how pharmaceutical development works. Now, let's just imagine that all of a sudden that dollar value went away. And that's what Project Warp Speed did. Project Warp Speed basically said, okay, pharmaceutical industry, we have a pandemic here. I need you all to basically compete, and let's see who can go ahead and get me a efficacious, safe vaccine for the SARS-CoV-2 virus as quickly as we can. And you don't have to worry about paying 50 million here, 100 million there, 500 million there. We're going to give it to you. And we're going to give it to you, and the end result will be a viable drug product that is safe and efficacious and is free to the general population because the government has paid for all the clinical trials. So that is the whole reason why these products got fast-tracked. There were 47 different formulations of different types of vaccines that are there for COVID-19. There are still, I mean, Johnson & Johnson's product will be coming out probably or at least being evaluated for an EUA at the end of this month. I know AstraZeneca has theirs that's currently actually being released in Europe right now. It hasn't come into the US market, but may. All of those vaccine candidates were all part of Project Warp Speed and all provided those federal dollars to go ahead and push these things through. So I kind of think of it as if I wanted to, say I wanted to flip houses. If you're familiar with that concept, it's like when you buy an old house, you fix it up and then you sell it for more money. A lot of people would be doing that if they had the money to invest. Well, if I don't have the money to invest, I can't do it. But if Uncle Sam says, hey, I'll go ahead and I'll give you the money to flip this house, and if you do it really well, I'll give you more money to keep doing it. That's in essence what's happened. So that's what's gone ahead and sped up the process, but has not impacted the integrity of the scientific rigor that's going on. So we want to be very clear that all of these two And future vaccines are still going through the same rigorous phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 clinical trial that any drug product would that went through a normal FDA process. So I hope that answered that question a little bit. Let's see here. Let's go through some of these questions and we'll kind of go from there. So how much is the vaccine? Well, we talked about that. Uncle Sam paid for the development, therefore you don't have to pay anything for it. That vaccine, that COVID-19 vaccine, is absolutely free. What I will say is some people are saying, well, what if I don't have insurance? It's okay if you don't have insurance. The CARES Act that was passed last year actually has funds. So Uncle Sam paid for the vaccine development and the actual vaccine doses once those two companies actually produced them to get them out. But they didn't pay for the syringes, the needles, the alcohol wipes, the nurse who has to inject it. And that's where the insurance question comes into. So individuals who do not have insurance, go ahead and get that from the CARES Act. Individuals who do have insurance, they will go ahead and ask you for your insurance information, and that gets billed, those ancillary costs get billed to the insurance company. So I want to make sure that everyone knows that the vaccine is free. And if they're asking you for insurance information, it's just to make sure that they know who's going to pay for the syringe and for the nurse and those kinds of things. And if you don't have insurance, well, don't worry about that. The CARES Act takes care of it. All right. Where can I get vaccinated and when can I get vaccinated? The Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, has a group of scientists and doctors and bioethicists who've identified what the structure of who gets the vaccine first. Obviously, those who are in our front lines, our nurses, our doctors who are working in hospitals with direct contact with COVID-19 folks, obviously they got the first parts of the vaccine. We want them vaccinated so they can be safe. Then we move into Tier 1A. That's anyone who has direct care. Now, we know that individuals who are elderly, our senior population, especially those that live in congregate living facilities, are at higher risk, so they were prioritized. And then the general 65 plus population has now been invited. Again, we've got our LA County Vaccine Appointment website here, as well as our Pasadena Public Health Vaccine Requests website right there. You can go ahead and take a look, and again, it's in the chat. So the general population, based off of what was previously before the new administration took charge, right now we were expecting probably sometime in the summer for the general population, but knock on wood, they infuse some more dollars into this process and make it more of a federal response, and hopefully we'll get more people vaccinated a lot faster. Fingers crossed. That was what if you don't have insurance. Let's see. Okay, so I already touched on that one. Oh, okay, so let's talk a little bit about our elderly population. One question came out and said, can you address the reports out of the Netherlands concerning the 23 people who passed shortly after getting the vaccine? So that wasn't the Netherlands, that was in Norway. And it was in a congregate living facility, so basically a nursing home, where 23 elderly folks who had underlying conditions were treated with the vaccine and unfortunately passed away from it. And according to the reports that I've seen, including something that was addressed by Dr. Fauci, was that there are side effects, and we're going to get into that in a second. Side effects tend to be, flu-like symptoms. So if you already have someone who is critically ill, all it's going to take is having a fever or a stomach issue that's related to that vaccine that will unfortunately push them over the edge. And I believe that is what the Norwegian government had identified, which is why they're still using the vaccine in Norway right now, but they're limiting it to individuals who are not in end-of-life care. So that's answering, I hope that answers that question. Here's another, so let's talk a little bit about side effects. So messenger RNA, mRNA vaccines do not contain weakened or dead vaccine or any of the antigens of the virus. We basically are creating those protein antigens ourselves, and then our immune system kicks in. Now, side effects from this, and again, let me preface as I talk about side effects that if you are interested in getting the vaccine and you have any questions related to that, please talk to your medical professional. You need to talk to your medical doctor about that. Because if you know that you have a history of allergic reactions to vaccines, you probably shouldn't take this, but again, talk to your medical doctor about what options you have. Someone had asked about reactions of food allergies. If you've had significant nut allergies, if you've had or shellfish allergies, again, talk to your medical provider and identify whether you are a good candidate for the vaccine. So those are some of the things that you want to think about. So some of the basic side effects, and I've had the Moderna injection. My first injection was a few weeks ago. I'm getting ready to do my second injection in the first week of February. There were no side effects for me. I had some soreness in my arm. I do know people who've had redness or swelling in the arm. There's some folks who've had, gotten chills or flu-like symptoms. That's your immune system kicking in and going through that and starting to go ahead and increase the temperature, because our bodies are really good at defending themselves against viruses, but not that good, because especially with a virus that that's never been in mankind before, this is why we get a lot of these symptoms. So again, going back to the side effects part, there are some side effects. I have not heard of anything that's been detrimental. Individuals who've had their second injection have talked about having, fever, flu-like symptoms that last a day, and then the next day they're gone. So those are some of the things that it's really important that if you've had any kind of severe allergic reactions or allergic reactions, that you talk to your medical professional, your personal physician, about whether you are a good candidate for this vaccine. Okay, I want to make sure that I'm very clear with that. Talk to your doctor if you're not sure. All right, let's keep going. Here's can dogs get COVID? Yes, dogs can get COVID-19. There have been studies showing that dogs and cats do get COVID-19. The impact to their health, we're not sure. There's still studies ongoing. The question is more of, if I sneeze on my dog, will the virus stay on their fur? It may stay on it for a while, which is why some of the public health recommendations when isolating is that you keep your animals away from you, so that way you aren't inadvertently having your loved one pet them, and next thing you know, they could potentially be at risk of getting the COVID, the virus. Let's see. Is the vaccine going to be annual? That's a great question. Not sure yet. That kind of ties into another question about variants. So we've been hearing a lot about all these different strains that are popping up. The UK strain, there was a couple of other ones that I forget off the top of my head where they're from. But those, right now, what we're seeing is that they are increasing the ability of one to get the virus or have be more susceptible to the virus. But at this point in time, there is no information or no data to suggest that the current vaccine would not go ahead and protect one from getting ill from those variants. But just like the flu vaccine is reformulated every year based off of the predominant flu strand that's going out right now. This may be the reason. COVID-19 is not going away, folks. We can go ahead and get vaccinated. We can do all these things, but it'll still be in the population. The good thing is that we will have immunity to it, so it will not impact us as much as one would suspect. So I'm not sure about whether we're going to, but more than likely. Here's one that I know a lot of people want to know. Do we still need to wear masks after being vaccinated? Yes. I know everyone's disappointed to hear that, but yes, you will still need to practice physical distancing and wearing a mask and doing universal precautions and washing your hands, because you might be vaccinated, but the loved one that you want to go see may not. And right now, the studies are not showing that just because you are vaccinated and immune to the virus doesn't mean you can't be a carrier. So that's why as you go and get vaccinated, because someone had asked the question, well, if I get vaccinated, can I finally go see my grandmother? I'm like, absolutely, you can go see your grandmother, but you would still need to go ahead and wear a face mask, because until your grandmother is vaccinated, then you won't, you just don't know at this point. And the science is not there yet to confirm or refute that the vaccine will allow for transmission. I will go ahead and say that this is the whole reason why we keep hearing stories about herd immunity. Herd immunity comes from when a large group of the population have immunity to a particular virus. So that's why everyone is being encouraged to take the vaccine, because the more people who have immunity will go ahead and reduce the risk of spreading it back and forth, which is why they're trying to get over 70% of the population vaccinated, because you will minimize the risk of going ahead and transmitting the virus to someone else. So I hate to say it, because I'd love to get rid of the mask. These things are driving me nuts, but you know, we do what we got to do, right? We want to protect our loved ones and protect, protect our neighbors and our community from the virus to continue to spread. All right, does the vaccine protect against variants? We talked a little bit about that. What if I had COVID and now are better? Do you need to get the vaccine? A lot of the research out there is saying, yes, you should still get the vaccine, because we don't know based off of the severity of your COVID infection, how long those antibodies, once you've successfully recovered from it, how long those antibodies will be effective, which is why they want to booster that with having you take the vaccine. Again, that's a great discussion to have with your medical provider to ensure that you are that you're doing the best thing for your body. All right, we talked about what's in the vaccine. Let's see, what are your thoughts, or what do you have to say to people that are not going to take the vaccine? Polls show that 30 to 40% of people are saying they won't take the vaccine. Again, each person is a unique individual, and you have the right not to take the vaccine, but you would still be, as a responsible member of our community, you should still be covering your mouth. You should be still wearing a mask, still performing universal precautions, because you could be the one spreading. I don't know how many especially in my industry in home care. I don't know how many people just thought it would be okay. I'm going to go check on my grandmother to see how she's doing. I haven't been really around too many people, and next thing you know, they have the virus and they've infected their elderly loved one. So, you know, if you choose not to take the vaccine, you have every right to. If you're not medically able to take the vaccine, that's totally understandable, but you still have a responsibility to our community to keep your family, my family, and our community safe. So please keep wearing that mask if you're not going to get vaccinated. All right, let's see here. Why does, okay, this is a good one. Why does the side effects of the vaccine vary to each person? I saw someone on the news pass out after their vaccine, but then others are perfectly fine. That has a lot to do with our biochemistry. All of our biochemistry is unique. I'll give you an example with me. I don't have a shellfish allergy, but for some reason, if I have a glass of wine while I'm eating shrimp, all of a sudden I blow up like a balloon. Why is that? It's a unique characteristic to myself, which just gives a good example of that each one of us has a unique biochemistry, and that, you know, some people do have reactions that are a little bit more apparent than others. So again, this is a conversation to have with your medical professional. If you have any concerns related to, well, I don't know, back 10 years ago, I took a flu shot and I had a really bad reaction. Have that conversation with your medical provider. I think that will allay some concerns, and you should feel a little bit better. All right, but it's all about our individual biochemistry. All right, what happens if you show bad signs after the vaccine? Do you still have to take the other shot? So purely talking from the perspective of the way that the vaccines were approved with their emergency use authorization, they are not greater than 95% effective until after the second booster, after that second injection. If you are having significant reactions, then I would definitely be talking to my medical provider about that, and they would probably tell you it's not good to take the other injection. So that is, again, a great conversation to have with your medical provider. Doesn't the mercury in vaccines cause autism? Well, you know what? Mercury, yeah, you know what? What we have to understand here, and I know these are questions that folks have about vaccines. As an analytical chemist, when we are releasing drug products, we are required to release them to a particular specification, including those that are recommended by the United States Pharmacopoeia. We evaluate drug products, not just the drug product, but also every individual component that goes into that drug product, including the materials used in the manufacturing, in the storage, in all those things have to be tested. Mercury is one of the things that we do test for. And I can assure you that a reputable pharmaceutical company is definitely looking at keeping mercury levels to a low level. Now, people are like, well, there shouldn't be any mercury at all. Well, I'm sorry to say, mercury is a naturally occurring element and it's everywhere. But is it at levels that will cause genetic defects? And that answer is no, they're not. So I would have to defer to good science and good manufacturing practices to ensure that we have confidence in the products that we release to the general population. I can tell you that the pharmaceutical companies that I've worked for are very reputable when it comes to these things. We are even told as analytical chemists, as we go ahead and develop these, that, hey, you know, if you're not releasing these things to the specification, that's that's a felony. I mean, you can be arrested for something like that. So no, I would comfortably have to say that the levels are within safe requirements. And again, all components, all materials used in the manufacturing, all the individual excipients are all tested for purity and for impurities being present. All right, what would happen if no one takes the vaccine? It's natural. Isn't natural immunization better? Well, you know what? If this virus wasn't as detrimental to the respiratory system as it is, maybe that would be a good idea. But unfortunately, with over 400,000 people passing away of COVID-19 over the last year, there is something to be said about the severity. I have family members who have had this virus who were perfectly healthy. And thank God they have gotten better, but they are still experiencing fatigue. This virus is no joke when it comes to its impact on our ability to breathe and take oxygen in. So just for that alone, I would say, you know what? I would rather be safe than sorry. Based off of what I've seen, I would not want to go through this. I have a cousin of mine who's a nurse at Riverside Community Hospital who's on the COVID floor. And it's just, you know, it's not just the elderly anymore. She's seen individuals in their 30s. She was calling me crying the other day about a patient who was 33 years old with 3 kids, and she passed away like that. Because when she got that virus, it just took hold. So I wouldn't mess around. It's no joke. All right, isn't the vaccine just another way for drug companies to make money off of us and take our tax money? Just like they did for masks and sanitizers. Company owners and government officials allocated more money into their stocks before the COVID boom. It's the same with insulin. These companies create problems and then sell solutions. All right, well, I'm going to let you know right now that I will comfortably say that I don't agree with that statement, number one. Number two is that no one could have prepared for this. And if we had, do you actually think that we would have allowed 400,000 people to pass away from it? So I'm going to have to disagree very strongly with that statement. The fact that our tax money is being utilized to go ahead and get a safe and efficacious vaccine to the general population within 11 months is not only a testament to amazing scientific research that's been going on for many years now, but it shows what we can do as a country when we put our mind to something. So as for the other things, well, you know, I'm sorry, you don't need to buy a mask or hand sanitizer. You could just go to CVS and buy alcohol and wear a bandana. So if you were worried about making money off of that. So yes, there we go. So are jobs going to be requiring vaccination to work there, and are schools going to do the same? If so, can we deny the vaccine? Absolutely, you can deny the vaccine, and but you will still have to go ahead and wear a mask. Think about it, folks. If you go to the hospital during flu season to visit a loved one, or if you're working at the hospital, you have to wear a mask. Unless you can show proof that you have a flu vaccination. This is very common practice. So technically right now it wouldn't be in our best interest to do so. Let's see here. I don't think, so put it this way, a lot of jobs may require it, but they can't mandate it. They cannot mandate it based off of the fact that, again, just like they can't mandate you to have the flu shot. However, they can go ahead and require that you use other forms of personal protective equipment to keep the population safe. All right, I think that covers that, and I see that my it seems, there we go. I'm just looking here because my producer is sending me chat messages with some questions in here. Just 4 more questions and then we'll continue answering those. And let's see. Anything on food allergies and the vaccine? I can give you the example. When I went to Lincoln Park to participate in the vaccination using the Moderna vaccine, one of the questions in the questionnaire, and actually one of the questions when you sign up, is do you have significant food allergies? If you have significant food allergies, it will probably not allow you to take this. There have not been significant studies performed in that particular population of individuals to ensure the safety of the vaccine if someone already has severe allergic reactions. All right, what if I'm already susceptible to a weak immune system? Great question. That's where you're going to talk to your medical professional. Will I be contagious after the vaccine? Can I visit my grandparents? Yeah, you may. And which is why, yes, you can visit your grandparents with PPE, wearing a face mask, making sure your hands are washed. Hopefully you can go ahead and get your grandparents vaccinated, and then you have that assurance that both of you are vaccinated against this virus. All right, last question from the preview questions. What's the difference between this vaccine and regular flu virus? The regular flu virus, flu vaccines are usually, like I said previously, they're either antigen proteins or they're weakened virus or viral vectors that have the genetic material in them. They are inactive, and what they're doing is they're being injected into us to cause an immune response. These 2 current ones here in the U.S. are messenger RNA driven. The future, I think the AstraZeneca one, as I said previously, is a viral vector containing vaccine. All right, let's see what we have here. My parents are not U.S. residents. They are visiting me and have been stuck here. Are they able to get the COVID vaccine? That is a good question, because at this point in time, again, you're being asked questions about being you know what, that is a great question. I'm not sure. A recommendation that I would have for you is to go ahead and call a local CVS. CVS is doing vaccines and has actually been contracted by the federal government to be a vaccine site in the future. It may be a good opportunity for you to go ahead and reach out to them to just ask that question. I unfortunately cannot answer that for you right now, but we'll get you. It looks like Sam got your information, and I'll research it and get back to you. All right, another question. Just about 10% of our employees have taken it. What is the plan to get more employees to take it? If they refuse, they are ultimately risking our patients. You know, that's a really good question. I think at this point in time, this is why, how can we go ahead and get more employees to take it? By educating them. And this is why we're doing this Facebook Live right now, is because we want to educate the population on the pros and the cons, and to have that make an educated choice about taking this vaccine. At this point in time, again, that goes for anyone who has not taken the vaccine, one would go ahead and expect that they would continue using face coverings, universal precautions, things like that to ensure the safety. One of the things that we like to do is, in circumstances where there may have been a potential exposure, is offer our employees that N95 masks to ensure that we have more control over the particulates that are coming out. That's something to consider. N95 masks is a great way to go ahead and reduce the risk. If we think about it, that's what the nursing staff at the hospital or the medical staff at the hospital are using right now. And knock on wood, as I said, my cousin is working on a COVID floor, and she is in 10 months has not gotten the virus. So there's something to be said for PPE. When used properly, it works. All right, let's see. Here we have, once you have the vaccine, can you get COVID again? Great question. The answer is perhaps. So again, when we talk about 95% efficacious, there's still that 5% chance that you could get the virus again. So the hope is that if you do get the virus after getting the vaccine, that it would be a much, much milder case than what you would have experienced had you not been vaccinated. Great question. Let's see here. Is it going to be mandatory to be vaccinated? No, at this point in time, no one can mandate vaccination, particularly with this. So again, what we're trying to do is encourage people to get vaccinated. I know a lot of employers are paying for an employee's time to get vaccinated. I know that, and their travel time to go get vaccinated as an incentive to go ahead and be vaccinated. Again, we're trying to educate people to let them know that there are, we need to try to make sure people make educated choices when they're thinking about the vaccine. Let's see here. Before, let's see here. So I think I'm just going through and looking at one more time if there are any questions. And so just to hit the highlights one more time, we're dealing with a messenger RNA vaccine. One question that I didn't bring up was, does the messenger RNA stick around and mess with your genes and your DNA? The answer is no. The messenger RNA does not penetrate the nucleus of the cell. It only goes into where our body prepares the proteins in the outside of the nucleus, and then once it's been read, it basically falls apart afterwards, and the body just absorbs it. So there's no negative impact of the messenger RNA being present in the body. All right, so one more time, let's go through where you can get vaccinated, and if you have any more questions, we'll still be able to go ahead. And how can I make the appointment was just recently posted into the chat. So what we're going to do, so for Los Angeles County vaccine appointments right now can be made at publichealth.lacounty.gov/ACD/NCorona2019/vaccine/HCWSIGNUP/. That is the website to book an appointment if you are currently 65 or older. If you're a direct care healthcare worker, you can go ahead and book your appointment through there. There are multiple sites. As you know, Dodger Stadium was already converted. There's Lincoln Park. There's Hanson Dam. There's the Pomona Fairplex. There's where else? Six Flags Magic Mountain. All those locations are available for Los Angeles County. If you are a resident of the city of Pasadena, then you may go ahead and visit cityofpasadena.net/public-health/COVID-19-vaccine/ and go ahead and fill out the request form from someone to public health to contact you about scheduling your COVID-19 vaccine. I hope that this has been informative for you. Again, feel free to shoot us questions. We'll be more than happy to go ahead and answer them as they come in. Again, thank you so much for your kind attention, and I wish you good health, and just be safe out there. Thank you.